Welcome to Parenting GPS, navigating your parenting journey. I'm Kari Kling, the host of your show. We all want our children to be as successful and to be able to reach their highest potential as humanly possible. And whether your child is struggling in school or excelling in school, did you know that there are very easy ways that we can help our children to have better memory pathways, increased learning, and opportunities for application to help them no matter where they currently are functioning and performing? Our guest today, Dr. Jean Moyes, is going to be telling us all about how movement and exercise can build better brains. She is an expert in her field, and I'd like to introduce her to you right now. Dr. Jean Moyes is a woman on the move. She has dedicated her professional life to understanding and teaching others the importance of the positive impact of movement and how it supports learning and memory by teaching academic subjects kinesthetically. Jean is the founder of Action-Based Learning and has presented her work in all 50 states in America and 10 other countries internationally as a keynote speaker, a workshop presenter, and a leader to facilitate groups of educators, families, administrators, etc. She is the author of several books, creator of videos, and online course developer for action-based learning. Jean holds a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in kinesiology, and was recognized with an honorary doctorate for her work in 2014 for her lifetime contribution in this field. She has been awarded various national awards over the years, including the National Physical Education Teacher of the Year, and has appeared in numerous TV, radio, and newspaper interviews. Please help me welcome Dr. Jean Moyes to our show. Jean, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it so much. I love the opportunity to share with people about how we can build better brains. So thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And just to tell the guests out there that we go back about 25 years when we had the opportunity to work together to share this wonderful information with people all over the country. And so it's such a thrill to have you here. Jean, you have spent your entire professional life, as I just mentioned, really understanding and teaching others about the impact of movement and exercise and learning. Can you please just begin to share that with us here?
Certainly, it's amazing because our brains were actually developed through movement. What makes us move is also what makes us think. In other words, the process we use to walk out the door is exactly the same process that the brain used to put other patterns into sequence, like reading and math. As a matter of fact, our brain, I'm going to make a brain model here. Our brain is about this big, but brain information goes from the front to the back of the brain across the motor cortex, side to side in the brain across the corpus callosum, and up and down in the brain through our emotions. Our brain has 4 quadrants and our body has 4 quadrants, and they correspond. When babies are little, you put them on their tummy, they can't move. They raise their head like this. That's the back to front brain developing. Then they roll. That's the side to side development developing. And then they begin to crawl. And that's when the cross lateralization comes. They're crossing those midlines, integrating all 4 of those hemispheres and all 4 quadrants of the brain, so that now the brain can process information better. It integrates the hemispheres, and it also activates that brain and prepares it for learning. And when we use more of our senses in the brain, then we can anchor that learning even better.
So Jean, let me, this is so interesting about how, we know about how babies learn, how their brains begin to develop. And then sometimes, we know how important movement is when our babies are babies, and then we send kids to school, and it doesn't always continue with the importance and the opportunity for movement and exercise. So please keep going, and could you give us some examples for our parents and maybe grandparents, maybe educators, anybody who's working with children at home that's watching this?
Well, one of the things that we know about how the brain really develops is the more you move, the better it is, of course. But also, you can use movement in a different way. You can actually anchor the learning that way. For instance, if I say our lesson is on exercise grows brain cells, we have the kids say exercise grows brain cells, and then we have the kids put a little action to it. So here's exercise grows brain cells. And then we have them say exercise grows brain cells to a partner. And then without saying anything, show me exercise grows brain cells. So they go. And what that just did was anchor all of that learning into different parts of our brain. I have a diagram of a brain back here. So when you learned it, it goes into the frontal lobe. When you hear it, it's in the temporal lobe. You see it in the occipital lobe. And then we acted it out in the cerebellum. So when that concept comes up, they have many areas of the brain to draw that information from. So it's see it, hear it, say it, do it. And that helps anchor the learning. As far as the exercise goes, there's specific movements that we also do to help cross those midlines as they grow older. And when they can't cross the midline, Kari, for instance, there's also balance and spinning. If they have trouble crossing their midline, guess what? They have trouble reading. They have trouble tracking across the page. They have trouble sitting in their chair because their body is out of balance and they're not developed fully. The good news is we can go back and fill in those developmental gaps, which is
absolutely. In fact, we hear about sometimes people that have brain injury and they take them back to crawling sometimes and try to repeat that. And so, Jean, could you please share with us a little bit about the different ways that we can remember, the 3 memory pathways, and then go ahead and give us an example, if you would, of the most powerful memory pathway that our parents can reproduce this kind of activity with their children at home?
Certainly, certainly. We have a lot of ways to remember. One of them is emotionally, but we use 3 basic memory pathways in order to remember. It's called semantic, episodic, and procedural. Now, semantic memory pathway is just the facts. It's basically knowledge-based. So it's numbers, dates, words, and usually our tests are semantic memory retrieval. And semantic memory retrieval is only about 5% effective. So it's not very effective memory at all. Then the second memory pathway is called episodic, the episode or the place. And that helps to anchor the learning. Now, just think about, maybe a song comes on the radio and you can remember the first date you went on and the person you were with and the clothes you were wearing and where you were. That's episodic memory. Very powerful memory. That's about 75% effective. But the most effective is called procedural memory. It's using your body. It's full memory. It's like some people call it muscle memory. You don't have to learn how to ride a bicycle again and again and again because you have that muscle memory, but it's also automatic memory. We're trying to move a lot of our content into that procedural memory, multiplication facts, sight words, but also what to do in a fire drill. So you practice it and it becomes procedural memory. That's about 90% effective, 80 to 90% effective. So if you can incorporate those 3 memory pathways in the learning, it really helps better retention of memory and better retrieval of memory as well. Let me give you an example.
Please. And Jean, let me just say this before you give us the example. So, we all hear things like, well, you were taught that last year, or, you had that in 3rd grade, but if they only had it in a semantic format where you hear the words, memorize it, and that was it, it's not going to go to long-term memory in a way that's easily retrievable. And so what you're saying is if we add the procedural, if we add the muscle memory to it, we're going to increase that up to 90% and a much better chance of the kids remembering it and being able to apply it. And so I know you have an example for us that you're going to do, and please feel free to go ahead and share with our viewers what it is now.
Well, you're exactly right. We have to use all three. So here's an example. I'll just challenge you, listeners. Name the 7 continents. What are the 7 continents? Well, if you're struggling a little bit, let me help you out. Let's pretend that there's a map of the United States, or excuse me, of the world back here behind me. And up here is the continent where I'm standing. That's North America. So put your hand up like this, say North America. And then in the middle, there's Europe. So touch your nose, say Europe. And then over here is another big continent, Asia. And then down here by the equator, say Africa. I'm not tall enough, that's my waist. So let's do the Northern Hemisphere. North America, Europe, Asia, Africa. Now let's do the Southern Hemisphere. Hold up North America, touch the knee below that. That's South America. Hold up Asia, touch the knee below that. That's Australia. And then where you're standing, like where the penguins live, that's Antarctica. So let's name the 7 continents: North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, Australia, Antarctica. Now we're going to sing the 7 continents to the tune of Are You Sleeping? Or Frere Jacques is the same thing. So let's sing it. North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Africa, South America, Australia, Antarctica, Antarctica, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Africa, South America, Australia, Antarctica, Antarctica. Now name the 7 continents. What are they? And I bet you just sang the little song and did the motions. Even though I said said it, you probably went North America. Why? Because I gave it to you kinesthetically. Using the 3 memory pathways, it came back kinesthetically. And now that is anchored all over your brain, and you will remember that. Now you remember the 7 continents because we added actions. The semantic was just the words, the names of the continents. Excuse me. The episodic was where we placed our hands. And the procedural was the song that you already knew that was already in your memory. So we use semantic, episodic, and procedural memory in order to anchor that learning.
Jean, thank you for modeling that. It's such wonderful information. And we're going to take a break in just a moment and come back and share more examples and more ways that parents can help their children to learn things kinesthetically. But I want to leave this segment with this thought, is that if you don't know the song, if you don't know, oh, my child has to learn, whatever it is about whatever subject, you can make it up. It's the concept that is so important in terms of learning and mastery and being able to retrieve that information so that your child can apply it, whatever it is. So we're going to take a break and we will come right back with so much more wonderful information from Dr. Jean Moyes. Thank you. And we're back. In the first segment, Jean, we talked about the 3 memory pathways, and the most powerful one is that of procedural. And you did a wonderful some wonderful modeling of the continents and how that's an example. But what can parents do when it comes to just basic homework, when we're talking about learning, number facts, spelling words, sight words, just kind of the things that the kids seem to deal with on a daily basis? Can you share some examples with our viewers about that, please?
Sure. Some of our kids struggle with homework just because they hear their parents say, okay, you're going to sit there until you get this done. And their little bodies, big bodies too, are screaming, I need to move. I need to move. So one hint that you could do for homework just before you even do any homework is to take a break an exercise break, just walk the dog, shoot basketballs, kick the soccer ball, run up and down the stairs, whatever, just to get their heart rates up a little bit. And then their brain and body will be ready for homework. But during the homework time, you might want to come up with some activities that they can use as a brain break. Sometimes you can just tell that they're just, they do, they want to get up and move. Well, in comes super parent saying, okay, you're brain dead, let's do a brain break. And so you get them up and do something simple. You might just have them bounce a ball while they're spelling their spelling words, or jump rope while they're saying their math facts, or even just on the driveway, there might be a line, just jump back and forth across the line as they're reciting a poem, something to get them moving. A more specific one, a really popular activity with all kids, and I'm talking kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, as well as the parents, is called quick math. And it is with a partner. So you would be with your child, and this is also going to build your relationships too. And you was on the format of rock, paper, scissors, and you go, I love math, and then show. So both of you are doing that. I'm going to play with you. Pretend like you're playing with me. I love math, show. Then you show any number of fingers or thumbs on one hand. So I'm showing a 3. Let's say you're showing a 4. The first person who comes up with the sum 7 gets it. So that's one hand addition. I love math, show. And then they come up with the sum. You could do 2-hand addition. I love math, show. So 4 plus whatever they're showing is the sum. If they're a little bit older, you can do that with multiplication. 1-hand multiplication would be I love math, show. And then whatever their number is, you multiply those for the product. 2-hand multiplication would be I love math, show. And then that would be my 2 hands added together times their 2 hands added together for the product. And it becomes just like a little competition. And it's so much fun, and they giggle and laugh. And it also helps you build a relationship with them when you play with them. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, again, it's such a simple idea of putting movement with what it is we're learning. Not only does it make it more fun, but it really does build a better brain and help children. It just helps children to learn the information. It's all about knowing how our bodies and our brains learn. Thank you so much for that, Jean. And in the first segment, you shared the continents and the song. Not only does putting movement help us remember, and one of the things that we know about brain research is that if you learn it in a pattern, a rhythm, a song, a rhyme, your brain is not going to forget it. Another example that you're going to use, that was a social studies example in the first part. Now we had a math example, or you could do spelling words, is a science example. And, from 2nd grade on, usually kids are being asked to learn the water cycle. And yet we get to high school and so many kids still don't understand the water cycle. And so you're going to be showing our guests in just a moment what that is. And if you would reflect on the why, adding the music to it helps even more than just the kinesthetic. So take it from there, please.
Well, we know from the brain science that the brain is hardwired. That means it automatically attends to rhyme, rhythm, movement, and emotion. So when music comes in, it incorporates all of those. Music itself has a rhyme, a rhythm, a movement, and an emotion to it. So when you are trying to anchor some concepts that are kind of difficult, when you add movement to it and to a song, then you are anchoring that learning. If the movement mimics what the content is, for example, water cycle, as Kari said, I'm going to up here. Okay, you put your hands up like this and say evaporation. That shows that the water's going away up into the clouds. Then you put your hands like this and say condensation. Pretend like you're touching the sides of that glass that has all the water on it. And then precipitation on my head, that's the rain, so it looks like my hands are raining. And then accumulation, I'll back up a little bit. You're going like this. This is where the water accumulates in the rivers and then it goes into the oceans. Water cycle. And then you start all over again. Have them turn around because it's a cycle. Then you put it to the tune of Clementine. It goes like this. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation on my head, accumulation, water cycle, and we start all over again. And then you repeat that, and that gets all those places in the brain again where they have stored that memory. They'll be much more likely to remember it. It's hilarious. I have done that with several of my students when I was teaching, and now they have grandbabies and they still remember the water cycle song.
Oh, what a gift. What a gift. And it's so important because we, the collective human beings, there's so much more to learn every day on this planet. Just there's no way that anybody can ever learn it all. So we have to learn how to learn. And this is really a wonderful gift that we can give our kids. We don't have to facilitate it as the parents, the grandparents, even the teachers. Once you teach the children how to do it, they can come up with their own movements, their own ideas. And it's not like, oh, I have to think about such and such for their homework or to help them. No, it's about just giving them examples. And the more sensory input that can be given, as Jean said, with the words, with the movement, with the songs, the greater the sensory input, the greater the chance for unforgettable learning. Well, Jean, we know that movement is not just helpful for learning, but also for mental health. And we have more children right now that have been diagnosed with mental health syndromes, if you will, than ever before. And when we come back after the break, we're going to focus on that and give parents some ideas of what they can do to help their child the minute after they see this show. We'll be right back. We're all coming off of this global pandemic, this global shutdown that impacted all of us, but especially our children. We're now finding out what some of those experiences cost our children in terms of development. There have been delays in language development and the development of social skills, as well as some mental health challenges. And as I said earlier, and we actually did a show about this about 3 shows ago, we know that we have more children with a diagnosis of some kind of mental illness than we ever have had before in the history of mankind. We have depression, kids with anxiety, ADD, ADHD, and the list goes on and on. Jean, how can movement and exercise help children in terms of their mental health and what we've all been through?
You're talking about a brain and body that's out of balance, and this is for all of us. And so it's all about getting back into that balance. And one of the things that the brain science is telling us is that healthy, active kids learn better. So it's getting them back into a state of health and wellness, if you will. So when I talk about movement, physical activity, and exercise. Well, why is that so important? Did you know that children are going to move no matter what? So we're going to move them with intention. And when they exercise, it actually changes their brain. We exercise for our brain. The brain changes immediately at a molecular level when we exercise. It does things like strengthens our memory. It puts our body back into balance because of all the chemicals. It actually helps us to learn better. And it's also fuel for the brain. Well, one of the big things the science has found is that when we exercise, move, physical activity, that creates a process in our body that grows new brain cells. And it's called BDNF. It's a scientific term for brain-derived neurotrophic factor, but you don't need to know that. But what it does, it's a protein that is fertilizing our brain. It's helping the brain we have, but it's making the brain better. It's like fertilizer for the brain. BDNF is housed in our large muscles. It's not activated until we get up and move around. So when the kids are doing something simple, like walking their dog or riding their bicycle or any kind of physical activity or exercise, you're actually getting that brain primed for learning, ready for learning, and they're prepared to learn. One way that we can counterbalance the issues that Kari mentioned, anxiety, depression, that is one way we can do it is through exercise. And of course, creating an environment that is safe for them to learn as well.
So, Jean, what I'm hearing you say is that just because there may have been learning loss during the shutdown, just because we have kids that maybe have developed some of these things that we refer to as mental health syndromes or illnesses, it doesn't mean it's forever. And it doesn't mean if your child had a setback, whether it's emotional, cognitive, whatever it is, that it's forever. And it doesn't mean that if your child is now 2 years behind, that it's going to take 2 years to catch up. Once we understand how our brains and our bodies learn, we can expedite that.
Exactly. And also, this is an amazing statement. The brain is only as healthy as the body that carries it. Let me say that again. The brain is only as healthy as the body that carries it. That's your brain, my brain, everybody's brain. Everything we're saying right now can apply to everybody that has a brain and or knows anybody that does, because it's for the parents as well as the kids. And one of the things we know about being human is we have 5 systems that interact, and that's your mental, physical, social, emotional, and spiritual moral. And our spiritual moral system is our purpose. Who am I? Who are all these people around me, and what am I doing here? So to get those systems back into balance, then you have to work at that. The new research, this is very exciting, Kari. The new research on BDNF, I mentioned it before, the fertilizer for the brain. You mentioned ADHD, because a lot of our kids are hyperactive. We're talking about being active. Well, what about the hyperactive ones? What they have discovered is the kids with ADHD have less BDNF than their peers. Less BDNF means that they're not getting the fertilizer that they need. So their bodies and brains are screaming, I need to get up and move. I need to activate those large muscles in order to stir up my BDNF, just to be like everybody else. So providing activities for kids, knowing each child's needs, and that's where the teachers come in so beautifully, but also the parents. Know what your child needs. Look at how they're acting. Do they need to move? Do they need to have more exercise? Are they eating correctly? So all of those things are factors that go into the mental health issues that we have in our country.
Absolutely. And we're going to come back in segment 4 and look at some questions from our viewers. But just to sum up what we've talked about so far is that when we add greater sensory input, when we add the kinesthetic to what we're doing, to what we're teaching our children and teaching them how to do it themselves, when we add music, when we teach kids about taking brain breaks and really listening to their bodies and learning, we can help children not only for whatever grade they're in right now, whether they're homeschooled or in traditional school or whatever the situation is, but really give them a gift for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
We're going to come back, Jean, in just a minute, and we're going to look at some questions that our viewers have sent that they'd like you to answer for them. We'll be right back. It's the time of our show where we help you reach your parenting destination by answering questions from our viewers. And we have 2 questions today, Jean, and I'm going to read them verbatim for you. The first question is from Kelly P. from Flagstaff, Arizona. And Kelly writes, what physical impact did learning remotely do to our brains and our bodies? My child sat for hours and hours a day for the entire global shutdown. What is your response to that?
Well, I think COVID, the whole shutdown, gave us permission as a society to sit and isolate. Sitting is not good for the brain. As a matter of fact, our society is into a lot of sitness and not a lot of fitness. The American Heart Association has declared sitting as the new smoking. Sitting kills brain cells, where now we know exercise grows brain cells. So to counterbalance the sitting, we need to move more. Did you know that when a human sits for 17 minutes, plus or minus 2, the whole physiology of the brain and the body starts to change? You see, you're sitting at 90-degree angles at your hips, your knees, and your ankles, so the blood flow is not very efficient to your brain. You're not moving your big muscles, so the BDNF is not flowing. And after about 17 minutes or so, the brain sends a signal to the body that says, our human is not navigating. Therefore, our human must be sleeping. So the brain tries to put the body to sleep. So we've got to get up and move that body around, because as soon as you get up, your brain goes into higher level focus. You have to attend to the environment around you. You're moving your body in space, and that helps the brain to wake up again. So when people say, well, I don't think sitting hurts you that much. Yes, it does.
It's such excellent information. And speaking of sitting, so many parents are having constant battles with their children regarding screen time and how much is too much and how much, should I cut it out completely? And I know a lot of the parent coaching that I do with parents is that always comes up. It's always a topic. And it seems to be that it doesn't matter how old the children are when that happens. And so our second question is related to that. It's from Taylor K in Springfield, Illinois. And Taylor writes, I don't want to just completely take screen time away from my kids because they play the games with their friends, and it's a big part of their social life. What can I do to help counterbalance the effects of my kids sitting and their screen time? How would you respond to that?
I'm going to go back to what we talked about before, and it's balance. There is good screen time and there is harmful screen time, and it's all about finding that balance. I would suggest that you make the screen time equal to activity time. So if they've been on the screen for 45 minutes, then they need to be active for 45 minutes, or at least part of that, because that's what we now know counterbalances the ill effects of sitting, of what happens with their eyes, because their eyes are focused and they are not navigating their environment. So all of those things. So the big thing here is to make screen time equal to activity time. We know that there are 4 things that will put our bodies and brains back into balance, and that is nutrition, exercise, water, and sleep. That spells NEWS as an acronym: nutrition, exercise, water, and sleep. Nutrition is so important. They have brain foods now that are really good. Omega-3 fatty acid from the fish, blueberries, walnuts. So the new snack at your house should be blueberries. We've talked about exercise and the importance of exercise. Water, our bodies are about 75% water. So we need to hydrate that body, and we are dehydrated as humans usually because we don't just drink water, we drink something else too. So the body needs that water to hydrate. And then sleep, we know that we need about 8 hours of sleep. Children need even more. Teenagers need more too. So nutrition, exercise, water, and sleep will counterbalance that screen time as well. And you could do a whole TV show on screen time, I know, but from my standpoint, make sure the activity time matches the screen time.
Such important information, Jean. And I know that the content that you have shared, excuse me, with us during this show will greatly enhance every family that takes it and applies it. And that's really the goal of this television show, not just this episode, but how can you look at an episode and glean information from it that you can apply right away with your children. And so I can't thank you enough for being here with us and sharing your expertise. Jean, how can people find you? Excuse me, how can people find you and know about your company, Action-Based Learning, and find some of the resources that you're talking about, whether it's for their own family or perhaps they want to get something at a larger scale for their school?
Well, thank you for saying that. The company's name is Action-Based Learning. So it's actionbasedlearning.com. We are located in Charleston, South Carolina, and we have information for classrooms. We also have an action-based learning lab. So we have some things where we fill in developmental gaps. But on the website, there is a store. And if you are a parent and would like some of the books that are there, there's one on math, there's one on reading, there's one on social studies, science, and health and nutrition. And the activities that I was doing with you are in those books. So that would give you a resource if you wouldn't choose to do that too. We also have some equipment that we use, balance boards, and well, it's a boomer board. It's like a little trampoline looking thing that the kids use, and some balance boards and other things too that you might be interested in. So actionbasedlearning.com. On Facebook, it's Action-Based Learning, oddly enough. And then for email, I'll just give you my email. It's jean@actionbasedlearning.com. So that should work.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And once again, the big news about today's show is movement, movement, movement. And it doesn't have to be parent directed, grandparent directed, teacher directed. Once those kids understand the concept, let them come up with their own things. It will be even more powerful for them if they create the movement or the rhyme or whatever it is that goes with their learning. And so I'd like to close today's show with you with a quote from Dr. Jean Moyes. And her quote is, "Healthy, active kids make better learners." It's so simple and so true. Thank you for joining us.